When you think about the Pittsburgh Steelers and their history, you think of one decade in particular, the 1970s. Obviously, with their famed steel curtain defense and their legendary offense consisted of Terry Bradshaw, Franco Harris, Mike Webster, John Stallworth, and Lynn Swann. And with all that said talent, they gathered up 4 Super Bowls in 6 years, a feat that has yet to be duplicated unless Kansas City three-peats this year. Many know there was a 40-plus year dry spell from its inception in 1933 until they finally won championships in '74. But what if I told you that there were chances for the Steelers to win championships long before they won them? When Art Rooney bought the Steelers in 1933, success was not immediate. Matter of fact, it was anything but that, combining only 5 wins in their first 2 seasons and as many coaches. But it wasn't until 1935 with the hiring of Duke hand coach and 7-Mule alum from Notre Dame, Joe Buck. After a 4-8 1935 season, which was an improvement compared to the prior 2 seasons, it brought hope for 1936 to be a change of fortune for the Pirates. And it started well, a 3-0 start with great defensive performances before the Bears and Packers knocked them down a peg. But sweeps of the Dodgers and Eagles put the Pirates in prime position at 6-3 to win the division championship. Oh, by the way, before I continue, can we talk about the scheduling here? 2 games in 4 days? What? And it didn't help the Pirates that from Week 9 on, both Week 9 games, that they had to travel. Week 11 was supposed to be their bye week leading up to their rematch with Boston. However, during said bye week, they had to travel to Los Angeles to play an exhibition game against the Bulldogs due to money demands, meaning the Pirates had to travel by train to Los Angeles, play the exhibition game against the Bulldogs, and lost. Then hop back on the same train and travel all the way back to Boston and play their last regular season game, and if they won the division championship. But the Pirates were a wreck from the trip and produced only 27 total yards of offense, losing 30-0, losing the division championship and a shot at the NFL championship game. The post-World War II Steelers had high ambitions of becoming NFL champions, with the returning players from their service, including future Hall of Famer Bullet Bill Dudley. But that wasn't the only acquisition that had Steeler fans in high hopes of a championship. The acquisition of head coach Dr. Jock Sutherland, considered by a lot to be the greatest coach in the University of Pittsburgh's history with the success that they had in the 1930s. And in 1946, despite an MVP season from Bullet Bill Dudley, who led the league in 4 different unique categories, the Steelers could not overcome the Giants, getting swept by them and missing out on the division title by 2 games. However, for the Steelers, the New York Giants were the least of their concerns. Long story short, Dr. Jock Sutherland and Bullet Bill Dudley never got along. They rarely agreed on anything. And it finally came to a head when Sutherland told Dudley that his teammates resented him. Dudley never believed those words, but that was the final straw between the two. Although Dudley didn't believe his teammates resented him, it was ultimately the last straw between the two. Dudley wanted nothing to do with Sutherland after that statement, and was ultimately traded to Detroit in 1947. Dudley's regrettable departure was eased by quarterback Johnny Clement, where in 1947 he led the Steelers to its best season ever, posted an 8-4 record that tied Philadelphia for the division lead, played in their first ever playoff game against Philadelphia. Although the Steelers were at home and were considered the favorite, it was Philly who dominated behind 2 Tommy Thompson touchdowns, was good enough for the Eagles to beat the Steelers 21-0. Even in a tough playoff loss at home, there were still high hopes for the Steelers in 1948. However, the following spring, tragedy stricken the Steelers. Jock Sutherland was on a scouting trip for the Steelers, where he drove off the road in Kentucky, where it was later discovered he had a malignant brain tumor. He was flown to Pittsburgh for surgery, but ultimately died on the operating table on April 11, 1948. The tragic loss shook the Steelers organization to its core. They would not be contending for another championship for another 15 years. The '63 Steelers might have been the most stacked team ever before the '70s. That consisted of future Hall of Famers Ernie Stodner, John Henry Johnson, and maybe soon to be added Hall of Famer Coach Buddy Parker. who led the Detroit Lions to what is currently their last NFL championship in 1957. Parker would find a kindred spirit in his quarterback, Ed Brown, who tossed on martinis as well as he did throw a football. Many of the 63 Steelers roster had that hard-hitting and hard-living lifestyle. Play football on Sunday and have a party during the weekdays. The Steelers would carry that lifestyle to a 7-win, 3-loss, and 3-tie record going into the last game of the season. And because of the ties don't count rule, put the Steelers in prime position to win the Eastern Division Championship. All that was needed was a travel to New York, beat Y.A. Tittle and the Giants, and they would be playing the Chicago Bears for the '63 championship. However, during the lead-up to the Giants game, most of the Steelers who lived that hard-living lifestyle instead went into hibernation during the lead-up. Instead of partying, they were training. Even the owner of Dante's Bar knew that was trouble. And the worst fears were realized. The Giants got off to a 16-0 start and didn't look back. Ed Brown threw for 3 interceptions and a total of 5 turnovers for the Steelers, and the Eastern Division Championship was lost 33-17. Following the 1964 season, which consisted of an 6-8 record, an exhausted Buddy Parker resigned from the Steelers, the most successful coaching tenure in Steelers history until Chuck Noll. So there you have it, the forgotten times where the Pittsburgh Steelers could have been either playing for an NFL championship game or winning an NFL championship game long before they actually won championships.